Hello, all, and welcome back to my channel, Red Femme Diaries. Hi, all. So I know you guys are like, what's going on? I can't believe she's showing her face again. I am. So I am starting a new series, as you can see by the title of this video, called His Story Talks. And basically what this new series that I'm doing is going to be, I'm going to be inviting different male guests to come on and tell their stories about their interactions with women in their lives. These next few videos I'm going to be doing, these are all men that I know personally, some for short periods of time, some for long periods of time. So these stories are all verified. Um, Basically why I'm doing this is because, and why I do my channel period, as you guys know, I have two sons and I am trying to, teach them different, life lessons and things about life and how to navigate this life, even if I'm not here. And so basically how this came about, a very good friend of mine, which is in a very abusive abusive marriage. He had been telling me that he wanted to come on to my channel and basically tell his story. And for the longest time, I didn't have very many subscribers. Shout out to you guys, my subscribers, because you guys are amazing. I'm finally at 3,000. I don't know if I told you guys, but I had a little goal in my mind that once I hit, or if I ever hit 3,000, that I wanted to start to bring on guests. And once I hit 5,000, I would really love to do live streams. But because, as you guys know, we struggle over here. I had to kind of figure out and learn how to do this and how to bring a guest on. So this was a little bit of a learning process for me. But here I am. I have a guest coming up shortly. I just wanted to really talk to you guys about this series that I'm doing. I am really excited about it because for the first time that I really know of, this is going to be an opportunity for men to come here unadulterated, uninterrupted, raw talk about their experiences. And these men that I have coming up here, these are going to be some very heart-wrenching, heartfelt stories. And this first gentleman that I have coming up, he's my first one. He's actually an author. And so he's written a book about his particular story. And well, let's get him ready. He's going to be coming up any a minute now. His name is Floyd Rounds, and he wrote a book, and make sure I get the title right. It's called Floyd's Story, A Letter to Dalilah. I'm not going to say too much about his, hello, Floyd, are you there?
Hello, I'm here.
Great, you can hear me?
Yep, yep, I can
Awesome.
hear you.
So I was just basically telling the audience about your book. I didn't say
Mhm.
very much. Your book is entitled, if you actually, since you're here now, can you tell the audience your name, a little bit about yourself and about your book before we really get into things?
Sure, I can do that. My name is Floyd Rounds Jr. I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, I am 41 years old. Um, been married for about 9 years, and actually raised a child for a certain amount of time, which we will talk about today. I work full time as a commercial real estate lease analyst for a company based out of California. I work remote. And I'm also an author of this book right here, which may be turned around the wrong
It's a
way
little
because of the
blurry, so just
camera.
hold it up just a little bit so they can see.
Yeah,
There we go.
I
Up
have
a
my
little bit higher.
screen blurred
There we
out. Yeah, I have
go.
my screen blurred out, but
Yes.
it's called Floyd's Story, A Letter to Dalilah, a story about grief, relationships, co-parenting, paternity, and manhood. So there's a lot in the book. And, there were some significant events that I wrote about, but there's actually one that we're going to talk about today, which is the reason for why we're here. So I'm
Well,
glad to be
let's
here.
thank you, and thank you so much for coming on. You are my very first guest on this series I'm doing called His Story. His Story Talks. So thank you so much for being my first guest. I don't worry, audience. I already let Floyd know that this is a struggle channel. So we are doing some struggle streaming today. So I apologize for a little bit of blurriness on my end. I'm streaming this from my laptop, but we are getting a webcam coming. So just to let you know, Floyd, my guests, my subscribers have been rocking with me from the very beginning, and so I
Yeah,
have amazing subscribers. They're incredibly patient. So I
sure.
just want to say, Floyd, we have known each other for how long would you say now? I want to say it's been maybe
Uh,
2 years.
yep,
Yeah, I think it's been about
yep.
2 years. We
Mhm,
met over Facebook. We had a little bit of a political dispute, and then
yep.
I found out about your website and your book. And don't
Mhm.
worry, guys, I'm going to link his website and his book in the description. And just let the audience know, Floyd, how long did it take for me to read your book? You remember?
Uh, it was quick. I will
It
say
it was one
that.
day.
Yep.
I read his book in one day during
Mhm,
my, work shift, and his story is part of what inspired me to start this series. So let's not, without further ado, let's just dig right in. And
mhm,
so, basically, this cast is about you, Floyd. So we want to hear about you, about your story. So I'm just going to jump in occasionally to ask questions, but we
mhm.
we, we want to hear about your story. So by all means, you can go ahead and begin.
Sure. All right, pause it.
Okay. So Floyd, if you could, before we begin, what prompted you to write this book?
Well, I've always been a writer, for much of my life. I've always been a good writer. I used to write poetry back when I was in high school and college, and um, you know, I got to a point where I realized, or at least I was kind of thinking that I couldn't make money writing this stuff. So I kind of stopped writing for a long time. And as I got a little bit older, I started to write website content and things like that for people. And people say you need to write a book, and I'm saying, well, I don't really have a book in me, so some things happened throughout my life. I said, okay, I still don't have a book. And then, the events that happened that led up to why we're here today, once that kind of happened, it kind of changed my life a little bit. And at that point, I just started to kind of jot some things down. And that's when, God told me, he said, hey, I think you have a book. You got a book now. You got to write this out. So that's what led me to actually start writing the book. And I think, once I started about 5 or 6 months later, the book was done. So that's what led me to write the book, and just to kind of as a form of therapy, but while also telling my story.
Got you. And I just have to say, as like I said before, your story really touched me. And your story, amongst some of the other gentlemen that will be coming on later, is what really inspired me to do this series of videos. So
Mhm.
please, if you could just start from the beginning, where your story begins.
Sure. And a particular story, and I mean, I'm not gonna make this about the book, but really just about my story. But there were, I lost my brother. That was a significant event that happened to me. I talk about manhood, things like that, relationships. But the one particular story, of course, that we're about to get into now is the story of Dalilah, who the book says a letter to Dalilah. Dalilah focuses on chapter 6 of the book, which is a child that I raised. So I would get into the story about how it happened. So the way that this story kicks off is, I was at a party back when I was, I think about maybe mid 20s, early to mid 20s. And I met a woman at this party. Not quite my type, but I had a little liquor in me, So we were wrapping it up, just chopping it up, talking. I said, okay, give me your number. I was with my friends, but I said, let me get your number. We can hook up sometime. And she said, okay, I got the number. Um, and then over the next week or so, we got together twice for some adult events, should I say.
We
Y'all,
understand.
y'all know what that means.
Yes, we do.
Did grown folks things a couple of times, and when I was done with that, I was like, okay, well, I'm young, I'm single, I'm just chilling. So I really didn't plan on seeing this person again. And then a few weeks later, I got a text message saying, can we talk? And of course, as a man, it's like, oh shit, what's going on? So things are kind of running through my head. And then when I actually got on the phone with this female, she said, I'm pregnant.
Mm.
And I said, as a man, your heart just kind of sinks. You're like, oh man,
Right.
I, And then, of course I asked, first thing I asked, I said, well, is it mine? And she said, yeah, sure. So I hadn't been with anybody else since I moved here from Alabama. You're the only person that I've been with, and I'm like, shit, okay. I'm just thinking in my head, like, I don't know this woman like
Right.
that. This is just kind of weird, but, being the man that I am, I was raised, to be a man, but, when it comes to women, to show respect, things like that. So I just said, okay, well, that's the case. Um, you know, I, but what do you want to do? And then at that moment she said, um, well, I'm just young. I'm trying to go finish school. So, I don't think, I need to keep the baby, so, you know, an abortion, I think that we need to do that.
Can I
And in
ask
my
a
head,
quick question? Can I jump in
sure,
just briefly? Because I'm sure
sure.
there might be some
Mhm.
people that might have a question. Did you use protection?
Um, I think the first time, I think first time I didn't, and I think the second time I did, but there was just a little issue with it. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I think both times we did, but that was one time where it was an issue with the protection coming off.
I understand.
That's
Okay.
what happened. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So, so she said, we should do an abortion, and in my head, I'm like, yes, because I don't know you like that.
Okay.
Uh, so, but but verbally, I'm saying, okay, I agree.
Mhm.
So I said, I gave her the money for the abortion, and then, she was supposed to go get it one day, and then she called me later on the day, crying, saying that her sister came down from New York to go get an abortion with her, and but she just couldn't do it. Just she couldn't do it. It was just feelings, and I'm just like, shit. All right, so that means you're gonna keep it, yeah. So at that point, I was just pretty much stuck in the situation, And I found
Gotcha.
out later on that she actually used that money to pay her rent or something else. She didn't even intend on getting an abortion with it.
Well, if you mind me asking, how did you find out that that's what she was used it for?
Her she has a cousin that she met while she was pregnant during, about 5 months in. A cousin of hers who's actually still a good friend of mine.
Okay.
Now, she met him through the process of um, her father and my cousin's dad were cousins.
Okay.
So she actually met them way, and throughout the process, she ended up telling his wife this. I don't know
Gotcha.
why.
And they
Yeah, but she
told you,
told her.
and okay.
Yeah, yeah,
But you had actually given her the money for it.
yeah. I gave her the money for it,
And
and
if I could ask, how much was it at that time?
it was I think about $500 that I gave her,
Okay, that you
and
gave her in cash, and
yeah,
okay, and she
yeah,
chose not to use it for
yeah,
what it was for. Okay, got it. And
yeah.
how
That's all.
long ago
Yeah,
was this?
this was. Let's see, this was back in 2000, probably late 2009, early
2009.
2010 when this happened. Actually,
Okay,
well, late 2009 was when this particular event with the abortion happened. Well, what
okay,
supposedly happened. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, and just what I just told you about with being deceived with that money. That's kind of a chain of what happens with this person. So
Mhm.
that just kind of lets you know the kind of person we're dealing with early on.
Right, right.
Um, so I go through the pregnancy with this person, and it was a weird situation because it's kind of weird to go through like a pregnancy with somebody that you don't know and you kind of don't even like. If you could just imagine that, if people watching this have kids, and a lot of I assume that when your child was on the way, you had some kind of bond with the mother, even if y'all weren't
Yeah.
married or whatever, you still have some kind of bond to where you were excited about what was going to happen.
Yeah,
And
it's
this is yeah.
yeah,
Mhm,
actually, in reading your book, for me, it's kind of hard to fathom. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Because it's a totally different vibe when you're
mhm,
married, you're planning it together, you want it. So that's a
mhm.
whole different experience when it's not only is it just not necessarily a wife, but it's essentially a stranger, right? So I can
Right,
only imagine, right?
right, and that's how it was. And this was like a stranger. I didn't
Right.
know her. And like I said, I wasn't really particularly fond of her like that because her personality is a little bit different. It's kind of large, it's big, and it's just a lot different from me. The thing that kept me going was the fact, that of course, your parents want grandkids, so my
Absolutely.
mom and dad were excited about that part. And then I was excited a little bit, just the fact that, okay, I'm going to have, some offspring, I want to see what it looks
Yes.
like, blah, blah, blah. So I was
And
excited about that.
was this your
Mhm.
first child?
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep. First
And
and
how
only.
old were you at the time?
I'm trying to remember.
Well, we could
This
do the
was 2000.
math.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do the math. This was
Yeah.
2010. I'm 41 now. So
So that about 12
2010.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that'll be, what's that?
So
30.
you say you're
About
41 now?
28. Yeah, like
Yeah.
28.
Okay.
20, yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So we went through the pregnancy, it gets to May 2010. Dalilah is born. And, she came out, looking like my mom. I
Mhm.
said, okay. I said, yeah. I said, my mom was excited about that. She was healthy. Everybody was healthy. So,
Right.
it was cool. And so, during those first couple of months, this particular mother, in the book, I refer to her as Emily Thompson. So I'm just going to say Emily for now.
Okay.
Emily was a little bit different. Her personality was different. She didn't quite bond with the child like most mothers would. So pretty much after her trying to breastfeed for like the first month or two or pumping milk, she was pretty much, back in the street. She was pretty much done. So throughout this child's first year, I had this child with me probably about 5 days a week at least, just by myself because me and
Mm.
Emily weren't together. She stayed separately in a house that actually I was paying rent for, helping her out with. Um, so I was having this child with me, and my mother would help me out. A lot of times I would go to work. And actually, my cousin that I mentioned in the book, I refer to him as Ethan and his wife Morgan.
Mhm.
Um, they were good people, so they actually babysit Dalilah for her first year for the most part.
Question.
Mhm.
Was this Emily's first child?
Yes,
It was her first child.
yes,
So it's
yes.
both of your first child. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I found out that she had an abortion previously, which I
Okay.
think I mentioned that in the book. Yeah,
Gotcha.
but that
Okay.
that was later on down the line when I found that out.
Okay. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so it's first child. So I would pick Dalilah up from Ethan and Morgan's house, and I might stop by my mom's house. So I stayed pretty close to my mom, so I would stop by there, maybe drop her off, and let her kind of play with her, kind of bathe her a little bit while I go home handle some business. Then I would come back and get her,
Mhm.
and she would stay with me, and then I would take her to daycare the next morning, or every once in a while my mom would keep her for a night that way. And then, they would drop her off. So we had her most of the time in that first year. And then, there were about maybe, 2 days, maybe 3 days at the most a week where Emily would have her. So
You were being a father, basically.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
doing the
yeah.
father hustle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of mothers are inseparable when it comes to your child in that first year,
Oh
but Emily
yes,
Emily
yeah.
was just a lot different. She was a little different.
Yeah, my just to jump
Mm,
in here, my babies, like
mm,
literally I would wear them on me because like they were
mm,
constantly, so I definitely understand
mm.
that. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and she wouldn't even go out of town, for like 3 or 4 days at a time, and just maybe
Mm.
text and ask how the child is doing. That's the kind of bond she had with the child, So
Yeah.
that's just what it is.
This
So
was what it was. Yeah.
yeah, so to get known down the road to kind of when the stuff started to happen after about a year, bit over a year after Delilah turned 1 years old. At this time, even throughout the pregnancy, I was supporting Emily. I was paying her rent, at the house that she was staying at where I met her at, because it was like a
Mm.
house full of roommates. And then she said that, it's just too much going on in the house. She needed her own space. So I actually found a house close to mine for rent. So I put her in that house, paid the rent. Um,
Wow.
my parents and I even got together and got her a car to drive. We did all of this.
Wow.
So even after the baby was born, she had a car that we gave her to drive. She was in this house paying, where I was pretty much paying most of the rent. I think she tried to pay something here and there, but she was working also. But I was still helping out because my child was in this
Right.
house.
Right.
So, so I was helping out. So there was about a little after her first birthday, Emily called me up one night and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something." I said, "Okay." She said, I need a stipend, almost like it's a business. Like I need a stipend, to kind of, um, to pay for some things. And I said, "Well, I'm already paying like most of your rent. I'm giving you, you got a car to drive. I'm giving you diapers and formula, whatever you need. I'm giving you all of that. Why do I need to give you more money?
Right.
It don't make sense." And then she said, "Well, and this is pretty much where everything turned. She said, well, if you don't give it to me, I just go down to the court and put you on child support.
Wow.
And I'm like, bitch,
Wow.
please. I'm like, what?
Whoa.
I was like, what? What
No,
did you say?
but before we go
Yeah.
on,
Mhm.
feel free to speak freely here.
Okay.
Okay?
I got you. I
You
got you.
know,
I
it's
got you.
all good here. Right.
I got you. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
I
like I was saying,
understand.
I was like, bitch, please. I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? What? I'm like, really? And then she
Right.
said, yeah. And I think, and as I learned in the years to come, she she probably would say things that don't think they're gonna go where she think they're gonna go. And this kind of I think went in a different direction than what she thought it would. Because I wasn't finna bow down to that. So I said, no, I'm not gonna do that. But I think I know what I gotta do now. I think I know what I gotta do now. And I just hung up. And so
What was it that you felt that you had to do now?
um yeah, I went and talked to my parents, just kind of make sure that they agreed what I was gonna do. And then that's when I made the decision to um, try to get full custody
All right.
of Dalilah because I felt like I was more stable. I had a good corporate job. I've always had good corporate jobs. Have my own place to live, transportation, got family support. Emily really didn't have a lot of that. Her family's a little bit different. So, I went to talk to a lawyer. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask because that
Mhm.
was very bold of Emily to ask for child support, considering you were supporting her essentially. You said with rent and
Mhm.
car and all these things. Do you feel that her boldness could have possibly came from the fact that you were already so giving to her that she felt, that she could just,
Mhm.
ask for more because she was already getting so much already?
Yeah, I think her boldness comes to her personality.
Oh, her
And as
person.
we get
Okay.
further on, as people, kind of learn about who this person is, I'm actually talking about.
Gotcha.
She has a tendency to take advantage of people, and
Okay.
it's been happening for years. It's just something in her that makes her do that.
Okay.
And I'm not, and I'll say it again as we go. I'm not really here to bash this person. I'm just
Right.
talking
That's not
about
what we're
what,
here
what it
for.
is. I'm just talking about what happened to me and what it is. So,
Oh, can I stop you really quick just so I can
yeah.
just talk to my subscribers right now?
Mhm.
I need you guys to understand with this series of His Story Talks, this is absolutely not about bashing women. What this is about giving men a voice. Because for decades now, the mic has been in the face of women. And for so many years, you guys have all seen, the Maury show and all these stories of, you know, uh, the you're not the father, you're not the dad. And we hear all these stories, and where all we hear is the woman's side. And so on this channel, we want to hear the man's side. We want to give the man the voice. So this is not about putting down women or bashing women, not by any means. We are just allowing the man to have a voice and a say so and the things that are going on. So I just want to make that clear. It may sound like bashing to some people that listen to this video, but that's not what this is. This is about telling the truth and getting it out there and allowing the man. As we know, there's always three sides to a story. It's his, hers, and the truth. We're giving the man a chance to speak. So that's what this is. So we just want to make that clear before we go on. Please continue.
Yeah, and just to
Okay.
piggyback on what you said,
Yeah.
it's not about bashing anybody. It's,
No.
it's just about getting the message out
That's right.
and telling people what happened. And I
And
mentioned this.
helping young men who could find
Yeah,
themselves in this very situation.
right. And
Right.
since I put this story in the book, I mentioned throughout that book a few times that everything that I talk about, I can support it with
Yes.
proof, validation,
And I
receipt.
know this for a fact, so that's why I have you on here,
Uh,
because I know all of this for a fact.
yeah,
So yeah, he's
yeah. So
speaking
I just
truth.
want, yeah, and
So
I just want,
yes,
yeah, I'm just saying that to the viewers, the
yes,
subscribers, that I have receipts, court documents,
yes, he does.
tests, DNA. Well, you already know from the title,
Yes.
DNA tests. I have everything
Well,
to
we're gonna get
support
there. We're gonna get there
what
yet.
I'm
Don't tell
saying.
him
Yeah,
yet.
I have
Yeah.
everything to support what I'm saying. So
Yes.
so
He is
all right.
speaking the truth. So, and
Yeah.
y'all know your girl, Red Film Diaries. I'm not about to have anybody come up here
Mhm,
that's not speaking nothing but the truth. This channel is about
mhm,
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So,
yeah.
go on, continue. We just want to clear
Yeah.
that up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I made a decision, to go ahead and get full custody. And I think about a day or two later, I told Emily, I said, hey, well, I'm I'm at a point where I didn't explain it. So I just said, I want to get full custody of Dalilah. I'm just letting you know that. And she just said, okay. Because she didn't probably anticipate, she's one to talk. She's a talker, and she's always talked her way in and out of situations throughout her life. So I guess, she felt she could talk her way out of this one. So that's her point. I was like, okay, she has to think about what she's going to do. So I got a lawyer, told her what happened. And she ended up getting some radio lawyer. But as I met with my lawyer, I talked to my lawyer, and she's a Black woman, um, good family lawyer. So she asked me, as we talked about everything, she said, well, do you have? So I laid out all the receipts, everything I did, every time I paid for daycare, had everything. I had receipts of paying the rent for the car, everything. I had everything laid out. She said, okay, you got a lot of stuff. So, and then the lawyer, she asked him, she said, well, did you ever get a DNA test? And I said, well, I had planned on getting one, like before she was born. And then when she was born, she looked a lot like my mom. So I figured I didn't need to. And then my lawyer said something I'll never forget. She said, well, you know what they say, you know, if you're around somebody long enough, you feed them long enough, they'll start to look like you. And all I could do was laugh. I said, yeah.
Right.
So she said, I recommend you get a DNA test. So, okay. I said, all right, I'll do that. So as this was going on, when I first told Emily that I was going to get full custody, she started acting funny. Said, well, I don't feel safe letting Dalilah be around you. Just kind of messing with me, not letting me see her or my family.
But at this
So,
point, how long had you been caring for Dalilah?
pretty much, that
How
that
many
year.
years? How many? So it's been a
Oh,
year.
this was right after
Okay.
her first birthday. So this is really
Right.
like a year
So
and like
okay.
some months. Yeah. So when all
Okay.
this was happening. So
Okay.
at first, when I first told her that, she started not letting me see her. And
Mm.
sometimes my mom would kind of be a bridge. My mom would see her. And I have a close knit family, so my mom plays a part in this as well. And actually met my wife shortly after her first, or around before her first birthday. So I had people, kind of on my side. And then, as we started going to the court thing, I think Emily started to realize that, um, something, you know, things weren't going to go her way. So she started actually trying to be nice and let me see the child. But at that point, it was too late. I wasn't changing my mind because I just felt like I need to get custody of this child because not this woman's going to try to take advantage of me.
Right.
So I went and got the DNA, when I got, my DNA tested, and then, it took her 3 or 4 days. I had to kind of push her to go get this test. I said, well, we took Dalilah, go get a test. Yeah, we're going, ha ha ha. Kind of making fun of it, because everything was a joke with her. So eventually she took her. And so, there was one day, and I forgot, it was like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks after we took the test. I got home from work, I just checked my mail. And I saw something from, the lab company that does DNA tests. And so I went in the house, sat down, and I just looked at it, opened it up, and I just saw all these lines, a couple lines, and it said, I remember seeing all the little DNA strands, I don't know what you call them.
Yeah.
But then at the bottom I read it said Floyd, Floyd Rounds Jr. Has 0.00 probability of being the father of Dalilah, so on. So and that's when it, it took me about a second to, I said, okay, hold on. I said 0.00 means no chance. And then that's when it hit me. I said, this is not my child.
Wow.
This bitch lied to me. And that was a heavy situation that, and there are men on here who may have, have been in this point, or people that and you know how that feels.
Kim, if I
Because
can just stop you for just a moment so that you can really
Mhm.
I really want to pause here for a minute.
Yeah.
And when you saw this, as far as you were concerned, I can imagine she was probably daddy's little girl.
Mhm.
And so I really want to dig into your emotions at that
Mhm.
moment
Yeah, and
of
I
what you
actually,
felt.
I was actually
What
about
you
to get,
felt.
yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna get into that. So
Okay.
so at that moment, it was it was tough. I was like, damn, uh,
Sorry.
it's not my child. So
Right.
and at that point it was, I was like, I don't, I don't know what to do.
Mm.
It was just like, it's just that feeling of deceit, because yeah.
I guess what I'm imagining is a lot of
Hmm.
confusion, a
Yeah.
lot of feelings of betrayal, hurt,
Yeah, yeah, but
anger. I can imagine a plethora of different emotions.
yeah,
I can only imagine.
yeah, and that initial day, um, that initial day, it was just more of a shock.
Mm.
So it was really me kind of sitting there in my rocking chair, that I had rocked Dalilah to sleep in many a nights, just kind of,
Yeah.
processing it out, and then that night I just kind of laid down, just cried myself to sleep. Because it was
Mm.
just it was just a lot on me. Actually, I went outside even before that. I went outside and walked around my house like 2 or 3 times because I just couldn't sit there in
Mm.
that house, because I had to get my thoughts together. So when I was done with that, I came back in, just did my night routine, just kind of took a shower, laid on the couch, just cried until I went to sleep.
Wow.
And so the next day, now I'm gonna talk more about my actual feelings, but the next day I told my parents about it. Um, you know, and then I think Easter was coming up that weekend. So like a few days later it was Easter weekend. So I was going to confront Emily, but I felt like I needed to do it in a setting to where it was just me and her. Because if not, she would try to. If I tried to do it on the phone, because if I had to take a few days to cool off, because I would have saw her, I probably would have just hit her in the face. I ain't gonna lie,
Yeah. I
and I
mean,
would knock I would knock the head off. And but I said, no, let me just cool down. I'm gonna talk to her on Easter, and confront her that way. So what I did was I made a copy of the DNA test. She came over to my parents' house for Easter, with
was
Dalilah.
this Delilah's first Easter? First Easter?
Uh, yeah, because she was born in May.
Mm.
Yeah, it was our
Okay. So
first
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 Easter.
Easter.
Okay.
Yeah. So well,
Mm.
no, actually, I guess it will be her second. Well, yeah, I think it'll be her
Technically,
second.
because she would have been a
Yeah, yeah,
newborn, the
yeah,
first one. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So what I did was I printed out a copy of the DNA test, and I called Emily to one of the bedrooms, as everybody was there, and I said, "Hey, here, take this. I need you to look at it, and I need you to come by my house later on so we can talk about it." And she, she just said, "Okay," and I think she knew what it was. Of course, I know now. I'm pretty confident she knew from the get go that this wasn't my child. But she left shortly after I gave her that paper. That's when she got everything together to leave, and she said, "Oh, do you want to keep Delilah tonight?" I said my mom's gonna keep her, so me and you need to talk.
Right.
So she came over later on that evening, and this is where we sat down, and so she came in the house. I sat on the couch, you know, um, and she had sat in the little rocking chair, and I said, so I said, what do you got to say? And then she just quickly came out and said, well, I thought it was yours. I thought it was your child until they told us when it was conceived. They told us when the child was conceived 9 months ago.
They do an approximate date. They do.
Right. But they tell you that right around
Yeah.
early on. She said, I thought it was yours. Well, I said, well, if you knew right all the way then that it was a possibility it wasn't mine, you lied the whole way through it. So, why didn't you tell me that?
Mhm.
And she didn't really have an explanation. She was just kind of popping off. And then she actually said, and she started laughing when she said this. She said, well, we only together twice. And when she said that, I was like, I wanted to knock her head through my window. I said, I really did. But I like, it's not going to get better if I do that. So I just said, and then she said, well, you have a bond with this child. This child loves you. You should raise this child. She never apologized in no
Wow.
time. She never apologized, but she
She
just
never
said
did. Okay. So
never
that okay.
apologized for
Wow.
anything.
Mhm.
Never.
Can
So
I just really quick
yeah.
thing and so
Mhm.
many times when you see these shows on TV with these
Yeah.
paternity tests, paternity court,
Mhm.
these women kind of blow that off. You know what I
They
mean?
do.
Well, I thought
Mhm.
that the reality of it is, and I want to speak
Mhm.
to the men, my male
Mhm.
subscribers here.
Mhm.
Women know very well who they slept
Mhm.
with. They know
Yeah.
very well. But I think sometimes what a woman minds does, they look at
Mhm.
their male options and they
Mhm.
try to pick what they believe is the best one.
Yep.
So that
Yeah.
during that time, even if it's
Mhm.
that month,
Mhm.
that you slept with more than one man.
Yep.
So a woman with any decency, in my opinion, would make sure that she was honest and open and tested both those men, because it is imperative for that, excuse me, for that child to know who her actual biological father is, not just for medical reasons, because a lot of times we think about that, family history, but we got to think about psychological reasons, emotional reasons. There's a plethora of different reasons, but in this channel, I really like to talk it, as you guys know, about the nature of a woman. But the nature of a woman, her mind doesn't think about all these different things. They don't think ahead, future wise, about this child knowing who her actual father was. They're not thinking about legacy. They're not thinking of none of these things. What that woman is thinking of, who of all the men that I've slept with, which one do I believe would be the best fit at this time? Because that's another thing. Because today, this man seems like he'd be the best option. Sorry, went off on a tangent. Please continue. Sorry.
Well, that's actually a valid point, because that goes into the title of this video, how why this woman is making that decision, and now I can go back and understand why she did it. It doesn't make it right. So I know
Because
why.
I think a lot of times, men, you guys don't understand how a woman's mind works. A woman's mind by nature is very selfish and self-serving. And I always talk about, the old adage of women and children first. So women are always in the mode of protecting themselves. And so they don't, all the things I just listed, they're not thinking of none of those things. They're not thinking about the child. They're thinking about themselves. They're about themselves and what suits them first. And that's very important in your story. So
and then that comes full circle to the theme, to where while she's trying to figure out her best option, she changed my life with that one lie. And and that's really what I want people to understand, whether it's men or women watching this. For the men, yes, you may know how I feel, but for a woman, if you're watching this, you can change that man and that child's life.
Absolutely.
With that one lie.
Yep.
And that's what happened with me. So after I had, went back and forth with Emily at the house, I said, well, you know what, I'm gonna need a couple of days to kind of figure out what I'm gonna do, and then she just said, all right, and she left. And so, and we talk about emotions. This is the period that was emotional for me, because I had to figure out what I was gonna do. Because on one hand, I had this child that I had a bond with. She knew me as daddy. I was the one person that, when she saw me, she lit up. It was,
Was she saying dada?
I think around that time she might have been, speaking a little bit, but she knew me.
Yeah.
So that's the bond I had. Yeah, that's the bond I had with her.
Yeah.
And I think on the other hand, Emily knew that I had options. I could have raised this child, or I could have said fuck it, and just told Emily, say, you know what, this ain't my child. Go find his daddy, or go take it to her daddy. Bye. And I could have walked away.
But what did you do? What'd you do?
I talked to my parents, and some of my close friends, the wife, just got to figure out what I was going to do. And then I decided that I felt like if I would have, and at that time, and now I'm not going to talk about it now. I haven't dealt with Emily directly in about 3 years, but at that time, I felt that she wasn't fit to take care of a child, because I had raised that child anyway, a majority of that first year. And just because the kind of person she is, her habits, her not keeping the child clean, we were, and I talk about this in the book, this kind of question, and, her dropping the child off with the babysitter sometime with the same stuff she had on the day before. We're trying to mark diapers to see, because we didn't think she changed her diaper. It's like, it gets bad. It was bad. So I had to think about all of that and just say, okay, if I was to walk away from this child and she ends up getting seriously injured or hurt or go into the system, I don't think I could be able to live with it, because I knew I had the power to give this child a good life. I was a good person. My family is a good family. I have my parents are here. We're close knit. I got a lot of cousins that are here, that eventually was a part of the child's life. I said, I can give this child a good life. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna step up and do that. And that's a decision.
At this time, I can imagine. I mean, when you're a mother, you develop a bond from day one. So at this time for you, I can imagine that you love this child.
Yeah.
You had a
Yeah.
sincere love for, and not just
Yeah.
you. I'm thinking of like all the people you named. I can imagine your parents,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they authentically had
Yeah.
love for this child that they felt was theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I talk about in
Yeah.
the book, that's one thing I do talk about. That's how I made the decision because while like I made a decision for me, um, I felt my parents never really pressured me to make a decision, but I knew what they wanted me to do. I knew
Right.
they wanted this child to be in our life.
Gotcha.
And that kind of played a part into my decision. So I do talk about in the book if me in the same situation as me are confronted with something like this, make a decision that's going to be that's feel going to be best for you.
Mhm.
Because some men may be in a situation. Let me find out what I find out, and it might be multiple kids. But you have to think about okay, what's best for you? Because some men may not. Some men may, say, okay, well, no matter what, these still my kids. I'm gonna step up and
Right.
take care of these kids, and that's great. But some men may not be able to handle it and say, you know
Right.
what, I just can't handle it. I'm not gonna. Every time I look at this child, I'm gonna see another man, so and so, and
And
it may
that's
not.
okay. I
And
want
they
to
right,
make sure
right,
that's clear.
right, and I
That
say
is
that's
okay.
okay. You have to do
Right.
what's best for you because you
Right.
didn't put yourself in a situation. Yes, you did lay down with that person, so
Right.
you didn't make a decision to do that. But
Mhm.
as far as the lie,
Mhm.
you gotta make do what's best for you. So if you have to walk away. And then also I talk to the women as well. I was going to say I also talk to the women um who may have who are pregnant and are leading somebody on or have had kids with a man and hadn't told them the truth. I said, at the end of the day, you're hurting this man, but you're also hurting that child
That's right.
because that child
Um,
doesn't know the truth. They're going to find out later on down the line that this man isn't their father. And then the man may walk away, or the child's going to be confused, and it's just going to be a big mess where the child's going to end up getting hurt.
I think it's really important that it be said right here that there is a lot of women out there that will put a guilt trip on the
Mhm,
man when he
mhm.
makes a decision to walk away from a child that is not biologically his. We see that
Right.
a lot, and I'm going to basically repeat the phrase of Kevin Samuels, and it's a phrase called shame, guilt, and the need to be right. That's called sign language. And there are a lot of men out there that are guilt tripped by these women that
Mhm,
say, "Oh, e- even though this is not your child, you're still supposed to love them, and you're
mhm,
supposed to be there for them." And I just want to make that clear before we get on, men. If you're in this situation, please don't let a female guilt trip you into walking away. Yes,
mhm,
there could be some hurt to the child, but at the end of the day, this is not your biological child. It's not. And so if you do choose to stay, by all means, but
mhm,
there's no one that can shame you or guilt you into continuing on with a child that is not yours when you have been legitimately deceived. So don't ever let a female guilt trip you into that. I just want to, to put that out there and make that clear. But yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
as you touched on earlier, like people watch Maury, and
Yeah.
I don't know if
Mhm.
Jerry Springer used to do it
Yeah.
to
I
where
called I
you
call them opportunists.
yeah where they'll say so and so um, you know it's not the father. Then the dude to get up and start doing a robot and all of that, and the woman to go
And the woman go
run,
run. And what's sad
yeah.
about that
uh,
is they've made a mockery of our community because they have turned what you're saying, real true human emotions and situations, into entertainment. And
Yeah.
they've made millions off of the pain of a
Mhm.
lot of men. And I'm disgusted by it. And this is why
Yeah.
I'm doing this here, because this is real. There's a real
Mhm.
person behind these stories. And
Yeah.
so that's why we're on here doing this now, because we want to make this real. This is not
Mhm.
about entertainment. This is not about being an opportunist. This is
Mhm.
real human lives that they could care less about. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
you're faced with when that does happen. What people don't think about is what happens after the show when you go
Right.
back home to Wyoming or wherever the hell you from.
Mhm.
People don't think about what happens after the show. This
Nope.
man has to deal with this woman and this child that he loves. He has to sit there and make these same decisions,
Right.
and people don't
Mhm.
see that.
No.
Um,
Mhm.
yep.
Well,
And just
here
to
on
get
Red Fem Diaries, we are
okay.
about the truth and we're about realness. And so
Yeah.
we want to hear what happens after the show, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so we'll
Yep.
continue on.
And that's pretty much where it's going now. So
Right.
I did tell, I called Emily up a few days later and I
Mhm.
said, hey, I made the decision to raise this child. Um, but I'm gonna tell you right now, all that old bullshit before now is done. I'm not dealing
Mhm.
with that. We're just strictly co-parenting. I'll continue to take care of daycare, and anything when she's with me, any expenses I deal with that. When she's with you, you pay for that stuff, and that's what we're gonna do. But I will tell you this, and this is key to what's gonna happen later. I did tell her. I said, hey, whatever. Two things. I said, number one, if you ever make it hard for me to be in this child's life, I'm not gonna be in this child's life any longer until it's on her terms.
Mm.
I told her that right away. And the second thing was that I asked her, I said, well, do you know who a real father is? And she said, at first I asked her twice. I asked her like once and I asked her a year later. I said, she said, yes, it's my ex-boyfriend from Alabama. And I won't say his name, but
Mhm.
some guy.
Mhm.
I said, okay. I said, well, does he know about her? And then, she said, I think at that time she said no. But I asked her again a year later. She said he knows about her. And I said, well, at some point he needs to meet her, And then she said, this is bullshit, but she said, well, he doesn't want to be in her life if he can't be with me, something like that. And I'm just like, I just
Mhm.
left it alone. But I just said at some point she needs to meet this person, and
Yes.
I'll talk a little bit later. But honestly, we don't. I don't think we ever would. At some point we will know who this person is, but
Mm.
that's later on in the story.
I'm gonna have to step in again, and I'm and
Yeah.
in audience. I'm trying not to step in too much. 'Cause I want this to be about Floyd, but I
Mhm.
need to step in here because you kind of skeeted through that really quick, and so I
Mhm.
need to take a pause, and so
Yeah.
that the audience can really get into their understanding what happened here, because he went through that
Mhm.
fast.
Yeah.
So basically, this man finding out now after spending this time with this child over a year, you said about a year and a half,
Yeah. A year
about
and
a
a
year and a
half.
half. At this point, he could have walked away and would have been in the right to walk away and live his life as a young man. I can imagine you're about 30, 29, 30 at this point,
Yeah, I think I was still like late 20s.
late
Mhm.
20s. He would have been
Mhm.
in the absolute right to walk away from this child and this woman and been clear of this woman mentally, financially, everything. But this man, this black man, and I'm saying black man for a reason because there's so much negative press against the black man. But this black man made a choice, even though he could have been free, to stay in this child's life, even though it would not have benefited him none, because he cared that much. And I really wanted to stop here because I really want
Mhm.
that to sink in. So I'm going to ask you, because I don't want to say it for you, what
Mhm.
made you want to stick around? Because you didn't have to. At this point, you're
Mhm.
free. You could go
Mhm.
on and you're fine,
Mhm.
but you chose to stay. So I want you to answer that really quick, and then we'll go on. But I
Mhm.
really need to understand what made you
Mhm.
want to stay.
Yeah, it was a couple of the points I think I touched on. The first one was
Mm-hmm.
that I had a bond with the child. The child knew
Right.
me as daddy, so
You're right.
you know, to walk away from this child and then for her to end up in a worse situation would be hard for me to take
Right.
because
Mm-hmm.
if this child would end up, in a bad situation, and I could have changed that,
Mm-hmm.
then I would have felt bad. It would be hard for me to live with that because this child can be permanently injured or something like that.
That's right.
That I could have
Mm-hmm.
prevented that from just keeping her, the life, giving her the life that I knew I could give her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the other part of it was also family too. I know family
Yes.
loved the child. Everybody had a bond with the child. So I felt like, with the help that I would have from my parents and from my family, pretty much babysitters on deck, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I felt like I said, okay, and they said the same thing. They said, she
So
knows
everybody
you.
was on
Like,
board.
yeah, they're like, that's your child. Anytime you need help with something or you got something to do, we got her.
That's
So
right.
that made it
Okay.
easier for me to make
Right.
that decision. Now I will say, if I'm in a different situation where I know some men out there don't have the kind of family support that I have.
Right.
It might just be them. They may have a mother or a father, but they may be busy doing their own thing, and a lot of it would be on them. If I was in that kind of situation where I didn't have the help that I have,
Mhm.
I might have said no,
Right.
and I might have walked away.
Right.
Uh, you
But
know,
you didn't. So, and that's,
but I didn't. And
but you
yeah,
did
and
not.
you got
Right.
some men out there that they might find out one kid's not theirs. They might have multiple kids that they find out are not theirs, but they still
Mhm.
stay there
That's
because
right.
that's just who they are.
Okay.
And that's good. You got everybody's different. But that was my reasoning for sticking it out.
Gotcha. I needed to pause
Yeah.
right there and make sure that that was like clear, because I just commend you for that. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a part of the
Mm,
story when I was reading it. I was just like blown away by that, because you didn't have to, but you still
yeah.
chose to. And I give you, although I give you a lot of respect for that, for the man that
Mhm,
chooses not to do that, much respect there
mhm.
too. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because, anyway,
Mhm.
please
Yep.
continue. Yeah.
Yep. And then to get in, to follow that, to get into the legal part of it, which I also discussed this in my book. Um, I talked to my lawyer shortly after that,
Mhm.
and I called her. I said, "Hey, I found out that DNA test said Delilah's not my child,"
Mm,
and she was kind of hurt too, but she said,
mm,
"Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, but um, she said I could just tell that things just wasn't quite right with Emily just because of how she was handling the whole DNA test and all of that, and her being
mhm.
hesitant. I just kind of had that feeling,
Right.
and so I told her, I said, well." I don't ever want to be, just because everything I'm doing for this child, I don't ever want to be put on child support.
Mhm.
Um, so I just want to know, like, what can I do to protect myself? Because this is the kind of person that I think will financially try to benefit from me no matter what I'm doing for her and this
Right.
child. And she said, well, I think based on your situation, you shouldn't have to worry about ever being put on child support. But if you want to be sure, you can sign this form, and it's called uh, acknowledgement of, I forget it's a long term, but it's,
Mm.
it's called a consent consent of acknowledging paternity recension or something like that. Basically, what this form does is um, it pretty much rescinds me as being the child's father for legal reasons. Like
Okay.
for Georgia, in Georgia, for example, they have a putative father registry, which pretty much, if you're on the child's birth certificate when the child is born and you legitimize the child, then you go on this registry, and then that way they can use that to put you on child support. And in Georgia, every state is different, but also I'll talk about in Georgia. If you're going to be in the, if you if a child's born out of wedlock
Mhm.
in the state of Georgia, the mother technically has sole custody of the child until the
Mm.
father legitimizes the child. Then that gives the father rights. And Georgia's kind of more of a heavily leans towards the mother state, but it's kind of
Mhm.
starting to change a little bit. But for you to actually have rights to apply for visitation to see a child, if you're not married to the mother, you have to legitimize the child, and then that puts you on this registry, and that gives you
Mm.
rights. So that way, if something happens down the road, like what happened with me, um, you may get put on child support, but you can still apply to have visitation, things
Okay.
like that. That's what that gives you the right to do that.
Quick question. Did
Mhm.
did you sign the birth certificate?
Yeah, I did sign a birth certificate,
Okay. Mhm.
um, which technically makes me the father, but
Right.
I also had to sign something separate, um, legitimizing the child, and that
Right.
and it's like
Mhm.
it's separate from the birth certificate, but
Right.
if you're married, then you're
Automatically.
automatically
Right.
right. But if you're not, you sign that. So I did that. But this form pretty much will reverse that. So that I'm not put on this list. So I did sign the form. It has to be signed by me and Emily. But what the form says at the bottom, and this is key, is that it said that, pretty much what the form is, a one-page form, and it says, you know, the parties are Floyd Rounds, Emily Thompson. It turns out through DNA testing that Floyd is established as not being the father. So therefore he'll be removed from the Peter registry list.
Gotcha.
And then
But
the
you
last,
had that opportunity, but in every state,
Mhm.
a man may not have the ability to do that,
right. Every
depending on
state
the
is
state.
different. Yeah.
So
So
I would
so
ask you,
mhm,
what advice would you give to young men when you have a child by a woman that is not your wife?
mhm.
What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to get to.
Okay, yes.
The last sentence of that form I signed said, um, the parties, can work among each other when it comes to the child's affairs, but they're not obligated to.
Okay.
But it says Emily Thompson now has sole custody of the child.
Got you.
So when I signed this form, what I didn't realize it would bite me in the ass later on down the road. But I pretty much gave her sole custody of this child, and I had no
Okay.
rights to the child.
Gotcha.
Once
Okay.
that form was notarized and submitted to the public records.
Okay.
So go into the advice, what I would say, if you're in this situation, um, and if you decide to walk away from the situation where you find out the child's not yours, and you don't have to worry about it. But if you decide to stay, or even if you're not, even if you're in a relationship with somebody now, if you decide, want to be there, you definitely want to get the child legitimized if you're not married,
Mm,
and explore your states. Every state is different, so explore what you have to do in your state to make sure you have rights to your child. Basically, if you
mhm.
want to be in a child's life, you make that decision. Make sure that you've done everything, because you may be in a relationship with a woman, or you may not. Y'all just co-parenting, but you
Mhm.
may not even have rights to apply for visitation for this child if it gets to that. And I know a lot of
Mhm.
people are on child support, so they've kind of already done a DNA testing, and they know it's their child.
Right.
It's different, but you all want to make sure you have rights to your child. So that's,
Absolutely.
I kind of gave that up and didn't realize it,
Right.
but I didn't think that I would need those rights.
Gotcha. I
Yep.
understand.
That was me.
Okay.
Okay, so I talked about when I found out, and the emotions I went through. So from the time that Delilah was from, 2 years old up until, about 6, 7, um, I worked to co-parent with Emily. We had our issues, of course, just because of, um, the kind of person that she was. She didn't really have a bond with the child, so it was just a little weird. Early on, I wanted her to kind of spend more time with the child. I would tell her that, but she just did a lot of traveling, not really traveling, but just kind of going places and not letting me know where she is, things like
Mm,
that. So there were issues we had with the child's care early on, and I won't. I'll be all day talking about all that little stuff, but there were a lot of bumps in the road with this kind of person, just based on the kind of person she was. And just to touch on it real quick, I think it's important.
yeah.
Um, Emily, her, she was raised. She has a sister that's about maybe 4 or 5 years older than her. Her mother, which I met, I think maybe one time, um, from what I heard about the history from her sister's husband. Her mother raised her. She was normal till the time she was about 12 years old. Emily was 12, and then her mother kind of got with a guy and joined some kind of almost like cult like religion.
Mm,
So she kind of changed, and her relationship with Emily was kind of strained, to where when Emily was about 16, 17, she kind of ran away and spent a little time in a foster home.
mm,
Of course, she kind of blows that up. I think she's kind of used that to run on, think, this whole foster thing, as if she was raised in foster care.
right.
But at that point, something might have happened back then to affect the way this person is. So I'm just briefing that as to some of the roadblocks we ran through, because it kind of caused a lot of issues with her lying to me about where the child is,
Mm,
the care she's given, things like that. So I ran into those roadblocks.
mm,
And then, in 2014, she befriended um, a local state representative from the area that we live in.
mm,
And that representative was going to move on to something else. So she actually helped Emily to run and get elected to be
mm.
state representative. So
Okay.
when Delilah, that was about 2014. So Delilah was about 4 or 5 years old when this happened. And she's elected to the post she sits in now, which is in the state of Georgia. She's um, the state representative for District 39 in the state of Georgia.
Oh,
So
wow. Oh, wow.
I use her name, the
That's
name
my
Emily Thompson.
district.
Yeah, yeah. I use the
It's
name
my
Emily.
district.
That's your
Yeah.
district.
Hmm.
Yep. I use the name Emily Thompson in the book, but it's similar to a real name, so people can put together two and two and see who it
Right.
is.
We don't want any
But yeah,
problems
yeah,
here over Red Film Diaries
yeah,
channel, so we're not going to
yeah,
say her name, but
yeah.
repeat
Mhm.
again. She is the state representative for. Uh.
For the Georgia House Representative, the state representative for District 39.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
And like I said, we're not here to bash, but it
No, we're
is what it
not.
is.
But it
It's
is
about
what it
it's
is.
about accountability. Yeah,
The truth is the
yeah,
truth. Right. Hmm.
yeah. So shortly after she got into this position, she met um, the person who's now her husband. I think he's of African descent, and she dated, of course, throughout the time that uh, we were co-parents, which I was fine with. But as long as these men, if they were around Delilah, as long as they treated her good, I
Right.
was okay. And I would ask Delilah from time to time, "Hey, how are things?" And then, of course, she met this particular person, and he actually was the one. that kind of stuck around. And I asked Dalilah how he treated her, and she said, oh, he treats me good.
Very good.
But at this time, there was a change. I noticed that as Emily got into politics, and politics can be grimy, so it kind of fits her. She started to kind of change. She started to change to
They
where,
can they can
yeah,
be very much grimy.
yeah,
So yes.
she started to change to where the mentality took on of in her head, okay, I have this person in my life now, I have this child, you know, it needs to look like we raised this. This was us.
Because
So
you want
she
a
started to
picture.
change.
They
Yeah,
want
she
a
wants.
picture.
Yes, yeah.
If I can ask, what was Dalilah calling you at this point? Because at this point she's what, 5, 6? I think you said like
Yeah,
5.
she was calling me daddy, and she was
She was calling
calling
you
this
daddy.
person by his name, which in the book I refer to him as RJ.
Okay, but she was calling you daddy because you're the only daddy that she's known up until this point.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She was calling, me that, and I noticed that's when things started to change because I noticed that Emily was starting to say, okay, just for my political image, I need to start making it seem like it's just us three, me, RJ, and the child. And that's kind of when things between us got strained because she started to kind of almost, I could see it kind of come where she started to seem like she almost kind of phasing us out.
Wow.
So she started trying to keep the child more, started trying to limit my time with her. And I noticed this, but the thing about it that really started to hurt me was that the child was noticing this too. And we would talk, when Dalilah was around 7 years old in the last days, I was actually seeing her. She would say, and she had an outburst one time where, her mom was just trying to get her from me, and she didn't want to go. And she just cried out, she said, I just want to spend time with you. And she just had an outburst because her mom, she knew what her mom was doing, and her mom wasn't caring about how she felt. She couldn't talk to her mom about these things. Her mom doesn't talk to her about anything. So it was a tough time for her and also for me because I knew what her mom was kind of doing. And then pretty much when this situation happened, and it was April 28th, 2018, I never forget. Um, Emily has started to really limit my time with Dalilah. And I kind of, I was seeing it, but I didn't think it would get to where it got. So um, I had a talk. I think I was in the parking lot at a grocery store, at the gym. And I said, hey, I said, hey, it was Emily's weekend coming up because I always get her. We do every other weekend. So I said, okay, it's my weekend coming up. No, it's your weekend coming up to get Emily, but if you're traveling, let me know and I can keep her for you because sometimes she would go out of town and leave Emily with RJ, but she wouldn't tell me that. And I'm sure RJ probably didn't want that response. He probably wanted to do his own thing, but instead of her saying, hey, you want to keep her this weekend, she would just leave him with him and run off. So I said, hey, if you're going somewhere, let me know. And then she replied, she said, no. She said, no, I'm gonna keep her this weekend, and I'm also keep her next weekend too. And I said, well, no, I said that's my weekend. I said, we, I already talked to you about you can't keep, you can't be making decisions. It's two of us.
Right.
And then I saw what she was doing, so I told her, I said, well, if you're gonna start going back to the old stuff, then we can sit down with Dalilah and have a conversation now about what we really need to talk about. Because at this time, Dalilah didn't know that I wasn't her biological child. I mean,
she didn't know.
Father. She didn't know.
Wow.
And so when I told Emily that, she went into her little threat mode where she says, "Oh, are you threatening me? Because I want to spend time with my child, blah blah blah." And then I said, "Yeah." I said, but if this was going to be like, then we need to go ahead and just have a conversation now and just let Emily, let Dalilah know what it is. Because I'm not going to go back down that road with you. And she said, and I said, but pretty much I'm done with it right now. But we want to get this handled. And she said, yeah, you're right. You are done. And that was pretty much the last time I talked to Emily. That was the last time. This was in 2018.
So literally from that conversation, can you rewind a little bit and just repeat that? So make sure that I got it and make sure that the audience gets that.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So with the conversation, there was some time where she was, I'm supposed to get Dalilah a certain day, but she would kind of cancel it. So it was at a point where I was probably seeing Dalilah like maybe every other week, like one time. And so when it come down to this weekend, I said, hey, this was Emily's weekend. And I said, hey, I know this is your weekend. So I understand you might want to keep Dalilah, but if you're going somewhere or you're gonna be traveling or I can always, if you got something to do, I don't mind keeping her this weekend. And that's when Emily told me, well, she said, no, I'm gonna keep her this weekend. I'm also gonna keep her next weekend. Emily know that was my weekend, but she just said, I'm gonna keep her next weekend too. And then she also said, she said, and it's not negotiable. And I forgot to throw that in the first time. So I said, hold on. I said, what are you talking about? It's not negotiable. I said, we it's two of us. And I already kind of had issues with her leading up to this conversation, but it was just a particular conversation that set me over the edge,
Yeah.
and she said it's not negotiable. And I said, well, if you're gonna start doing this, then we need to go ahead and have a talk with Dalilah about the truth.
Mm.
And then that's when Emily kind of, and kind of when you back her into a corner, she'll kind of pretty much lash out at you and disappear, run off.
Wow.
And that's kind of what happened with this. She said, "Oh, you threatened me?" She said, "No." Well, pretty much, blah blah blah. And then she said, like, she said, "Tread lightly," like she threatening me. And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I ain't finna keep going back and forth with you. So this is what it is. This is what it's gonna be." And I'm done with the conversation for right now, but we're gonna get it handled. And then she said, "Yeah, you are done."
And so
And that was it.
literally what you're saying is when she said you are done, at least she meant that you were done.
She meant that. Yeah, she
And that
meant
was
my
the
much.
last time that you had seen Dalilah or her?
I ran into them about a few months later at the store, at the grocery
Okay.
store. And of
Mhm.
course, Emily didn't really say nothing to me. I talked to Delilah for about
But
5 minutes.
Delilah saw you and she recognized you and
She
she knew?
recognized, she saw me, we talked, and because she was in I think first grade or second grade at that time. So
Mhm.
we talked, and Emily just stood there, didn't say a word to me. But at that point, from that night when we had that conversation, um, that's when I kind of realized that this person was going to continue to take advantage of me, no matter what I did. So I went home, I poured a drink, and I was like, I just said, I think this is it, and this is where I had to make the tough decision to kind of step back, because I knew that
Mhm.
this person was going to keep doing this to me, and
Right.
it's probably what she wanted was for me to she probably didn't expect me to abruptly walk off like I did, but I knew that I
Right.
had to, because it's for my sanity, my household, my family. I couldn't allow this person to do this to me when I've never done nothing to them. And I knew it was going to
Right.
continue. So I made the decision at that point to kind of step back. And, I never, and it hurt me, in the next few weeks, days, months, it hurt me, so I would just cry sometimes, because I knew that I had to do this, but I knew that what hurt me the most was that what this child was going to go through, because I knew her
Right.
mother was not going to say anything to her about this. And this child pretty much is not going to be seeing her daddy, but her mom's not going to talk to her about it. And so the next day, um, like there was field day at the elementary school, and my mom was pretty involved with the school,
Mhm.
because she wasn't working at the time. So she went up to the school and she saw Dakota. And
Oh,
okay,
it's
I'm
okay.
sorry,
It's
but
okay.
yeah,
It's okay.
we'll go right by it. But anyway, she saw Delilah. So so Delilah, she said, "Hey, can we go to the classroom? I want to show my mom some of my stuff, some of my stuff
Her
that I did on,
grandma. She wanted to show her
yeah,
grandma.
yeah, her grandma, yeah,
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 yeah.
show grandma some of, her painting and stuff." So the teacher said, "Sure." And so she had took her to the room, and my mom told me, she said, "Well, my mom said I'm not going to be, um, you know," but she said, "Well, I know I'm not seeing you and daddy as much now." And my mom said,
And I'm
"Why?"
sorry, how she was about 7, 8 at this time.
Yeah,
So
she
she's
was 7.
aware.
She was
She's
7.
aware. She's aware
She's
what's
she's
going
aware of what's
on.
going
Yeah.
on, and she, yeah, and so she told my mom when they were in the classroom, just her and Delilah. She said, "Hey," she said, "Well, my mom, I know now why I won't be seeing you and daddy as much." And then my mom said, "Why?" She said, "My mom said I'm not gonna see you guys that much anymore because we're not blood."
Hmm. Okay.
So if you think about, after everything that me and my family done to this child, I mean, done for this child, done for this woman, she this child has to learn this with one simple sentence. Like, we weren't given the respect or opportunity to sit down with this child to explain what happened. Her
Right.
mom just said, "You're not going to see them anymore
Because
because
they're
they're
not
not your
blood.
blood."
But
And
all
that
this
was it.
time, this was her. I don't know. Did she have a name? Did she have a name for your mother? Like sometimes they have like
Yeah, she called her
grandmother,
Granny,
not
Granny and Papa. My dad
Granny
was
and Papa.
Papa.
My
Yeah,
father was Papa to my kids, so yeah, I
yeah,
understand
yeah,
Papa and Granny, and
yeah,
Daddy. And so
yeah.
it basically came down to they are not your blood, and that's it.
And that's it.
Did you
Mhm.
ever? Were you able ever to have a conversation with Delilah about this? Did you ever get that opportunity?
I never got that opportunity,
Gotcha. So
and that
essentially,
was April 2000. Yeah.
this
Mhm.
book is essentially that conversation that you were not able to have with her.
Right, right. And
Gotcha.
so, in the, as the chapter kind of ends, I talk about pretty much what we just talked about. That
Yes.
was it. It was hard for me, because I know that from then until now, this child probably her mother has probably never had a conversation with her other than that about this. So for these last few years, this child has had to figure out ways to deal with this. And actually, you know what? In December, let me take it back. In December of that year, this was 18. Um, I think my mom or somebody actually didn't. I think my mom actually butt dialed Emily somehow, and ended up talking to her.
Mm.
And Emily did, I think, allow my mom to see Dakota.
Okay. It's okay.
All right,
No worries.
like, all right,
No
all right.
worries. No worries. It's okay. Keep going.
I'm gonna start over. We can edit this out.
Yeah,
So,
I will try. Yeah.
okay. So in
Okay.
December, I'm gonna go back. All right, in December of 2018, I'm gonna take that back. My mom, you know, my mom, I think, butt dialed Emily, and Emily answered the phone, and they ended up talking for a quick second, and she did allow my mom to see Dalilah. You know, so Dalilah did come to the house. I was able to kind of FaceTime her and and hear her, but other than that, I hadn't had any communication. I never had a chance to talk to Dalilah. So as I end that chapter in the book, I write a letter to Emily. There's a letter to Emily where I talk about it, and I mean, I talk to her directly, and I say, hey, I'm not gonna say I hate you or anything like that, you know, but I will say there are things and demons that you need to really deal with because you're gonna continue to hurt this child if you don't, and hurt other people as you have done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the sad part about it. A lot of these
Mhm,
mothers don't understand as
mhm,
they're going about their life and what they
mhm,
want and their goals. I think they tend to forget that
mhm,
their
mhm.
child is a human being. And when we're
Yeah.
talking about a 7-year old, we're not talking about a newborn. A
Mhm.
7-year old is very aware of what's going on more than what we think.
Right.
And so there's so many things and emotions that Delilah, I can imagine, is going through, with so many questions that
Yeah.
she doesn't have answered. And so I
Mhm,
just have to say that I commend you for
mhm,
writing this book and being open and transparent about your story. So at some point, when Delilah becomes an adult, she understands that she absolutely had a father that loved her. And the sad
mhm,
part about some of these stories is they only get the mother's side because, like we said when we
mhm,
first started, there's three sides to every story, and a lot of these times these children are only
mhm,
getting their mother's side
mhm,
because it's called in the court system, it's called like alienation of affections, right? Like,
mhm,
it's a lot of time these mothers will fill their child's heads with certain ideals, their
mhm.
feelings, their emotions about a relationship or a situation, where the
Yep.
child doesn't get the full picture. In all of these history talks that I will be doing, you hear a lot
Mhm,
about that, where the
mhm,
children only gets the mother's side. And
mhm.
that's a whole lot of selfishness on the
Yeah.
part of some of these
Mhm,
mothers, that they're looking out for their own best interest and not
mhm,
considering the child. There's a whole lot of trauma, hurt, and pain that I
mhm,
see in the future of Delilah's life because she doesn't
mhm.
understand all this.
Right.
All she knows is that her daddy and
Mhm,
her granny and her papa and the
mhm,
cousins and everybody, all of a sudden one day they're just gone. They're not blood, and that's it. Now she has to
mhm,
deal with this.
mhm,
Now, as a mother that has not considered her feelings, is she going to now take her to therapy to get her to
mhm,
understand these emotions? Or is she
mhm,
going to try to make sure that that complete picture is what's pushed forward for her, political career? And
Yep.
speaking of that,
Mhm,
as we're starting to wind down here, I
mhm,
did want you to kind of touch basis on this political career
mhm.
because you have a lot of women out here. Well, I'm talking to my audience for a brief moment.
Yeah.
My audience knows very clearly about how I feel about the role of a woman as wife
Mhm,
and mother. But in these modern day times, the modern day woman, a lot of times, instead of her family, her husband, her household, her children being her main
mhm,
focus, for a lot of these
mhm.
modern day women, it's their career. So I
Yep.
kind of wanted to get into that, especially in Emily's story, because I do
Mhm,
believe that her career took a huge precedence in this situation. So there was a particular story that came out about Emily
mhm,
online and some things that took place here. So I just kind of wanted you to touch basis on that with the audience to
mhm,
let you know how much this woman's career, her political career, meant
mhm.
to her. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep. And I'll deal with
Right.
that. And just to touch
Yeah.
real quick
Yeah,
before I
just
get
real
into
quick
that,
touch. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, to end that chapter, I wrote a letter to Emily and also
Yes,
wrote a
sir.
letter to Dalilah, pretty
Mhm.
much explaining what she's going to go through, how she's going to be
Yeah.
hurt,
Yeah.
how her mom may not give her answers, but just continue to move
Mhm.
on. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that. And
Absolutely.
of course, to get into this political thing, I found out as I wrote the book, released the book, that or told my story that wow, what Emily did to us was kind of jacked up. She's hurt a lot of people and used people financially, and that kind of leads to what happened with this particular event. She may not have the education and can't really talk to people. She's a talker, but it's hard for her to be around people. So for her to get support, she has to create drama. And this is one situation where she did that by going into a Publix store and pretty much accusing the guy of, you know, pretty much saying they kind of got into it about, I think, her being in the express lane with more than 20 items, something like that. So, the
Okay.
guy kind of didn't have to say anything to Emily, but he did. And she ended up pretty much, he pretty much was just telling her she didn't have to be in this lane. But she pretty much turned and twisted that into he told her to go back where she came from.
Mm.
And she got on Instagram live crying
Hmm.
because she was so hurt by what this guy said to her or supposedly said to her. She even at some point brought Dalilah into the screen while
Mm.
she's doing this.
Mm.
So, and right away when I first heard about it, I already knew that it was bullshit. I knew that. My family knew that because we knew her. But the rest of the world doesn't quite know this.
So what
So
I'm
they
getting here before you go on, so
Mhm,
to make sure it's clear to the audience, from what
mhm.
I'm hearing, this like go back where you came from. So was this a white man?
Yeah,
That
it was a white man.
okay, okay.
Yeah, that said
So is this
this.
was this some sort of hoax or racist hoax or something that
Yeah,
she was?
yeah. Yeah, well, what happened was the next few
Okay.
days, she
Mhm.
ended up kind of getting the news station. The next day, she got the news station and was out in front of Publix talking about what happened. And this man someone told him what was going on. He actually drove up and she was on the news confronting him about it right there in the parking lot. And
Mm.
he was just saying that, he didn't say that. And then they turned around and they kind of kept interviewing her over the next few days. And her story kept changing. And then the
Mm.
people in Publix, they reviewed the video. And from what they heard, he never said that. So it
Mm.
kind of ended up coming around to it being kind of clear that she made that up.
From
To-
my own research, actually,
mhm.
the Publix that she was at is actually my local Publix. It's
Yeah.
actually the one right down the street. And from
Mhm,
my understanding, the
mhm,
gentleman that she said told her, a black woman,
mhm,
the white man that told her to
mhm,
go back to where she came from, came out
mhm.
to be that this was actually a Cuban man. This
Yeah,
actually wasn't a
yeah,
white man. This
he
was
was
a
cute.
liberal Democratic Cuban man, and she's a
Right,
Democrat.
exactly.
And
And
so
that's what I was gonna say.
yeah.
But she didn't. But she tried to crucify this man, not even knowing
Wow.
that this is somebody that would support her. And she was able to actually raise money, and that's kind of what they. And she has a few other incidents, but she would raise money just from doing this. And
Wow.
then now, once people find out the truth, 'cause I think even celebrities and people had sent her money for this.
Yeah.
And then once they find out the truth, then she's off. She's gone. You ain't getting that money back.
Mm.
So she'll use these things to raise money for a cause. And then since then, there's been other little things. I think she tried to hit another representative, try to fight another representative of ethics charges. There's a lot of things going on with this person, but it's just
Well, what's
yeah.
interesting is I actually had heard about that story before I had met you. And I
Mhm,
remember hearing about that story and I said, oh, this is awful because we're in 2022, we're now living in what's called cancel culture. So
mhm,
anytime you call someone a racist, sexist, anything like that, media, they are ready to cancel you. So she did
yeah,
not know this man and she lied on this man and
mhm,
was insinuating that he was a racist, even though he was a Cuban, a Democrat, liberal, probably one of her supporters because
mhm,
she's Democratic. You can ruin a person's life by a lie. So here we
mhm,
are, her lie with you. How
mhm,
many lives have been ruined by basically her word? And that's why I'm doing this, because it is upsetting that we put so much strength on the word of a woman. No matter what she says, we take it as true. We don't care
mhm,
about the lives that are ruined, whether it's like the guy at Publix, this Cuban liberal man that she tried to accuse of racism. Thank goodness he was able to come in at that time and explain himself. But what if he wasn't there? You can lose your job for this. You know what I mean? We think about your life, the child's life, your extended family. All of these lives can be ruined at the word of a woman, and there is no consequences.
No, and I
For
guarantee
this.
if me and this man were to walk in the Publix together and see her, she would act like nothing ever happened.
Absolutely.
You would act like the past 10 years of my family never happened.
Because
this is the kind of person,
yes.
this is the kind of person mentally that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's just amazing how some people are like that, but that's just life. You know, I happen to come across this person, I happen to have this experience, but hopefully it'll help other people. Like I said, I would never here to bash this person. But you know, number one is about accountability. But at the same time, I want people to understand that the decisions you make can have lasting effects.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is, sometimes it's a split-second decision that we make. And the thing about it is, this is not about bashing anybody, because this is life. And as human beings, we make mistakes. Absolutely. But I guess what the message me personally am trying to get out, and I think what you're here for, is that we want to bring this message to young men out there to be very careful and watch your steps, because for so long, and me and you are around about the same age. You're older than me though. But we came up in a time where a woman's word was gospel. You know what I mean? Yeah. Women were considered queens, precious. We were unfortunately, women were put on this pedestal that no matter what we said, it was believed. But times are changing now in 2022, and I do believe that a lot of men are starting to finally wake up to a woman's nature. None of us are perfect. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. On my channel, I advocate for men. You know what I'm saying? But for decades, women have always been advocated for across the board. But the reality of it is, women are not necessarily these sweet, wonderful angels that could do no wrong. And as we see, as this series goes on, sometimes the lies of a woman can cause immense devastation, not only in the lives of a man, but in the lives of their own children and in the lives of society. Because in this small story, so many lives here were affected, by this woman, but yet there's no consequences to that.
Yep.
You're left with hurt and pain. Her Dalilah's grandparents, I'm still saying that they're her grandparents. There's so much hurt and pain here, but it's all swept under the rug because we must believe women. And I guess it's part of my purpose to kind of start busting some of this up, because your story matters.
And it's very common, because 30% of men out here in the US are raising children that are not biologically theirs.
But now some of these men know about it. I was going to say, is that 30% men that know, or what about men that we don't know, because we don't have percentages on that?
Yeah, we don't have percentages on that.
We don't.
But we just know. But 30% are raising children that are not there. Some of them know about it, and some of them don't. I don't know the percentage with that, but it's just the fact that this is so common.
Right.
And it's not talked about. Right. And that's one of the when I wrote the story, number one, I wrote it for, just for therapy, just to kind of write it out. And, I laughed, cried as I wrote this story. And the other part was that, as people found out, they said, oh, my nephew went through this, my cousin went through this. And it got to a point where I said, you know what, so many people have gone through this, that this story can actually help people that are going through it, but also prevent people from going through it. And that's where it is now. That's what I want, people to know about this story, not necessarily because of who's in it, but because of what I experienced and how other men go through it. And, some haven't went through it yet, but, on the other end, like you said, with women, some women may know about this story and they might try to flesh it because they might be lying to men. So I understood what this book will be, not a book that might not be accepted as widely as other topics, because why I can help men, it can definitely change the life of some women too.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
don't think. I think too. A lot of times, women, we don't think when we do our deception and lies and deceit and all the things that we do.
Mhm.
We do not think about the ramifications. Our mind doesn't work that way. We don't think about the
Mhm.
long term effects of some of the decisions and the lies that we tell. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
our minds aren't logical. We base
Mhm.
everything on our emotions. So however we feel at the moment, we
Mhm.
make decisions based on our personal feelings at that
Mhm.
time. And
Yep.
so we don't
Yep.
think this way. So my prayer is not only that men hear about this, but women too. When you think about, lying or deceiving to get your way, understand the magnitude of some of these lies,
Mhm.
especially paternity. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And you probably got some women watching this, based on the percentages and the subscribers. You probably have women watching this now
I
that
have some women.
have
I have
25.
mostly men, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
yeah, you
some
might have,
women.
kids in their 20s and 30s, and they're
Right.
probably gonna stop this video now because that's just the way that
Yeah. Uh-huh.
people are.
But
Just the way they
what I
live.
say in my channel, and I've said this many
Mhm.
times before, um, we you preach the truth regardless, in season, out of season. You know what I'm saying? If
Mhm.
if I can reach a million, awesome. But if I can just reach one person, if there's one young man watching
Mhm.
this right now and hearing your story can prevent this from happening,
Yep.
then I think our job is done. And as we come to a closing here, I
Mhm.
want to just basically I want to hear what you would have to say, because we have three different types of men that are listening to this right now. We
Yeah.
have young men that have not fathered any children yet. They haven't fathered
Mhm.
children, they're not married. And so they're hearing this with a clean slate. We've
Mhm.
got men that are currently going through situations like this where paternity is at question and they're struggling and going through what you went through. Then we have men that are where you are, that have already gone through something like this, and they're still
Mhm.
dealing with the trauma of this situation where they thought that they had a child and then they don't. And a lot of times men don't necessarily seek,
Mhm.
a therapy or, any personal. And I want to ask you that. Have you sought
Mhm.
any therapy, or what can you say to those three distinct
Mhm.
groups of men
Mhm.
now that you've gone through this?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that quickly. So those who haven't entered fatherhood yet, I would say, uh, be careful about your choices of the women that you deal with, and if you decide to be sexually active with one, protect yourself. They might say they're on birth control, but still, especially if you're in your 20s, a young person, just protect yourself, and it'll be good to be, if you're ever thinking about not protecting yourself or anything, make sure you're in a monogamous relationship with that person, because and if you could have a child with this person, what it would be like. Just think about those, so that way, if you do happen to get, you know, the person becomes pregnant, the woman that you're dealing with, then you can be, it'll be a little bit easier for you to get through that period, whether you and this person end up getting married or you don't. But at least you're in a relationship with this person. Y'all can have a mutual respect for each other. That's about respect, and that's
Absolutely.
where the situation I talked about with me, there was really no respect, and
Mm,
that's kind of why things went the way they did.
mm,
To the men that are currently going through, you might have a child, you may be going, you know, through the course on child support. You may or may not have had a DNA test yet. Um, I would say, if you do have a child on the way and you're not married to a person, um, I suggest you highly suggest you have a DNA test to make sure that that's your child, because it'll save you a lot of heartache down the road. Even if you're married, if you're having any kind of doubt that the child might not be yours, have the test.
mm,
Whether you can tell you can tell your spouse you want to test, and it might be an issue, or you can just do it on your own. I think now they even sell them at drugstores. You can just do it on your own when you and the child. You can just when the woman's not gonna be around that child 24/7 unless she
mhm,
suspects something.
mm,
Then she might not let you be around the child, but you can do the test on your own just for your own satisfaction. And for the men who are like me on the other side of it, whether you decided to stay in a child's life or not, as you mentioned with therapy, I haven't had really kind of professional therapy yet,
mm,
but I do plan on actually one day talking to someone about my situation.
mm,
Writing my book was a way, and I just happened to be to myself a talented writer. I would say that,
I can
you know,
agree because I read
that
it.
was
I
my
agree.
way. Yeah, that was my way of my therapy.
Mhm,
You know, a form of therapy was really just letting people know about what happened to me, because
mhm,
people know me. I'm pretty popular, you know, in my area because I grew up here.
mhm,
So to myself, I didn't think this would ever happen to me.
right.
And then, you know, but I decided to put it out there because, you know, I wanted people to see that, hey, like, you know, this could happen to Floyd. You
Mm,
know, so when it happened, people were caught off guard. But you know, they commended me for what I did. For those that decided to actually read the story, um, but yeah, I would say to anybody that's on the other side of it, you know, if you're having issues with your day to day, you know, things because of what you think about mentally, then talk to somebody about it professionally, because that will help.
absolutely. And like again, before we go off, where are you now? And what do you see for your future going forward as far as your relationship with Delilah?
Um, I haven't had communication with Delilah since December 2018. Neither with Emily. Um, Shortly after that, she ended up, you know, telling my mom don't contact her again, or
Oh,
she's going to get a lawyer.
okay.
So she's pretty much just cut things off. So pretty much where I'm at with Emily is that, you know, I stepped back, and I, you know, some people that are watching this, they may agree or disagree with what I did, but I had to do what I had to do for my
Yeah.
sanity. And I refused to deal with someone, Emily, who had no respect for me or my family, who didn't even have enough respect to talk to me. And the respect has got to a point to where, um, I've even heard that her new husband, she's pretty much putting his last name behind Delilah's last name,
Wow.
and never had a conversation with me about it.
Wow.
So that's how disrespectful it's gotten. But I'm at a point to where I understand that I have to live my life and be happy.
Yes.
So regardless of that, and my decision now is just to continue to live my life with my family until I can interact directly with Dalilah.
Do you have hopes in the future that,
Mm,
once Delilah is of age, maybe turns 18, that you can
mm,
possibly rekindle or at least,
mm,
touch bases with her at
mm.
that point?
Yeah, and you know, I feel it may happen before then, just
Okay.
because I'm in the same area as Delilah and Emily. You know, Emily has to be in the area for her political thing. She can't move out the area. So we're all in the same area. So as Delilah, she's in sixth grade now.
Okay.
So as she kind of gets older, you know, at some point, you know, I feel that she, you know, she'll probably reach out to me, or you know, Granny and Papa. At some point, that we're gonna see them.
Okay.
You know, I hadn't ran into them yet. My parents haven't either, but we're gonna see them at some point. Even though I think Emily makes an effort to not be in areas of the of our area that I'm
Okay.
in.
Mhm.
So that's why we hadn't happened. But at some point we're gonna see them. She's gonna want that. And at that point, it may happen then, or it may just have to wait until she's older. I know right now, just from things I've heard, she's being prevented from contacting us.
Right. Well,
So
the
yeah.
awesome thing, I mean, I'm not a big fan of all this social media and cell phones and things because I have a sixth
Mm-hmm.
grader myself. He doesn't have a cell
Right.
phone. But at some point, Delilah will have access to cell phones, social
Right.
media, and things like that. So it will
Mm.
be easier for you to, be able to possibly,
Yeah.
rekindle or reconnect with her. It's just a matter
Mm-hmm.
now of just being patient and waiting for that time to happen and
Right.
hoping that
Mm.
she is still open, I'm saying,
Yeah,
to a relationship
and
with
that's
you.
where I'm at.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at, and that's why,
Yeah.
you know, that's one of the things I think about is that, you know, hopefully she won't take on too many of her mother's traits, even though that is
That's
her
what you
mother's
hope.
child.
That's a hope.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you hope that she doesn't
Right.
take on those traits. You know the kind of person she was. She knew
Right.
the kind of person her mother was. She
Right.
even said it. So she understands, but at the same time, because I had looked at the possibility of trying to petition for visitation and talking to a
Mhm.
lawyer. But one thing I was told was that, she said it's been about 3 years. The
Right.
child that you haven't seen is not going to be the same
It's
child.
a different
You
child
see them
now,
again, right?
right?
So she
Especially
said,
with
just think about
children, a
that.
year or
Right,
two is a
right,
totally different child, right?
right. So I don't know, she's
Right.
gonna have questions, and I've talked to, you know, friends that have been through kind of similar things, and they kind of reassure me. They say, she's always gonna love you, but she probably will still have questions, but she's
Absolutely.
always gonna love you. So things like that kind of keep me grounded. I say, okay, I can focus on my life. I can focus on achieving my goals, and
Absolutely.
when it's time for Delilah to be back in my life, she'll be back in my life.
Absolutely.
But Emily will not have any place in my life ever.
And
So
I absolutely understand
yeah.
that. Mhm.
So that's where I'm at with it.
Well, Floyd, this was an absolutely amazing conversation.
Mhm.
Just thank you so much for being so open and transparent about your story. As far as my subscribers, I really hope that we still have some of you guys left because this is a long conversation, but we needed to really get this out. So thank you, Floyd. Um, so much for this and for what you're going
Mhm.
through, and just know my thoughts and prayers are always for
Mhm.
you and Dalilah, and hopefully your reunion in the future. um I'm going to say a few words to my subscribers now, so if you have some final words before
Mhm.
we part ways.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Sure. I just want to say
mhm,
thank you for giving me the opportunity to,
absolutely.
talk to your audience. I really
Mhm,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
Can I say my website? Is that
Oh, please,
yeah,
absolutely. I'm sorry, I don't
yeah.
think we got. Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to link it, so don't worry, guys. So go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So you
Mhm,
can actually find out all about my story. I have a nice little pretty website. It's at
mhm.
floydstory.com. That's FLOYDSSTORY. So it's two S's in the middle. Floydstory.com. And I have a couple other chats I've done talking about my story. You can access the book and also the audio book. I have an audio book that I released last year. So that can make it easier for you to either listen or read the book yourself. The book is
That's
on
how I got
Amazon.
through it in a day. I actually
Yeah.
downloaded the audio, and so I listened to it between patients. That's how I
Yeah.
got through it in one day, and it was an amazing read. I highly recommend it.
Yep, and you can access the audiobook from there, or you can.
Mm,
I have it links to Amazon and Kindle from the
yes,
website, so you can check it out there. And I appreciate you.
awesome. Okay, so
Yeah.
thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna have you come out now, and I'm just gonna say a few more words to my subscribers as you head on out.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
All right. Let me get out of here.
Okay. Bye bye. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. Well, all right, guys. So that was my very first interview. I can't believe it, you guys. Like, man, you subscribers are amazing. You guys have been here with me since day one, since my poor man podcast days. And here I am on a very fuzzy looking interview screen. So we're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. So once we hit 5,000, we're going to start doing lives. And that was my first history talks. I have about so far 6 to 7 other gentlemen that we are going to be doing this with. My next one is actually going to be tomorrow, so you don't have to wait a very long time. Tomorrow's one is going to be very deep, so I really hope that you guys join me. Thank you so much for watching. So here we go. Please like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel. This is Red Fem Diaries. Goodbye. No, this is awkward because I can't figure out how to stop this thing. Here we go. Goodbye.